Okay, so the Yartung Horse Festival. It's Upper Mustang. It's being held on the 23rd of August till the 8th of September in 2025. You can see here a shot of the horses that have been part of the festival, and the locals, the lobers, drinking chang, relaxing after the celebrations. So I'm going to talk a little bit generally about Upper Mustang and about the horse festival, and then we'll get into a bit more detail. I want to thank Luigi Fieni for this magnificent photo, first of all. You're looking at Upper Mustang here. It's located on the border of Tibet in Nepal. The small village down the bottom on the left-hand side is Chosa, or Chosa is spelled T-S-O-S-H-A-R in this PowerPoint. We're looking toward Tibet, and that would be the Sarabang Range. You can see there in the distance, the peak there that you can see. You can see what an incredibly dramatic landscape it is. It's a high altitude desert, absolutely stunning. So here's a map of Nepal, obviously. The trip starts in Kathmandu, and from there we take a flight to Pokhara. We used to fly on to Som and then start the trip from there, but flights are so difficult at that time of year. They've stopped running them till after the 1st of September. So now, rather than spend hours waiting in Pokhara Airport for something to happen, and sometimes it doesn't ever happen, we're going to be met by four-wheel drives in Pokhara, and then we head up on our trip. So we make our way up to Jomsom, and we drive to Tatapani first and stay overnight in Tatapani, where there are hot springs, and we have a lovely little lodge there right on the river, and then work our way up to Jomsom. That's the gateway to Upper Mustang. And from there, we walk up the road to Kagbeni, where we get our inner line permits, and then we head off in four-wheel drives up the hill. So the long Forbidden Kingdom wasn't opened to tourists until 1992. The first Westerners were permitted to enter there and found a very harsh climate, intact culture, and artefacts ravaged by time. My friend, Lonely Planet author Stan Armington, who wrote Trekking in Nepal for many, many years, maybe 40, was among the first people to visit this once forbidden kingdom. Stan's a friend, and in 2013, I'd sponsored an artist from Mustang who was a monk. And Stan came to a satellite exhibition in Kathmandu, and he suggested that I join him that following August and go to Mustang because I'd never been there. I went up with Stan and a couple of other people, and I was just absolutely hooked. It was the most incredible part of the Himalaya I'd ever been to. I've trekked in the Himalaya for 27 years, Indian Himalaya, Nepal Himalaya, Ladakh, Indian Himalaya, Nanda Devi region, a lot of treks in Nepal, but Upper Mustang I was absolutely sold once I went there. So how do we get there on this trip? A variety of transports. It's no longer a full-on trek because there's been a road built right up through Upper Mustang, and really it's made trekking not tenable, in my opinion. We were ending up walking along roads where there were vehicles passing, and you know, nobody really wanted to do that. So what we do is we go in a mixture of four-wheel drives, as I just mentioned. We get up to Jomsom. Then we walk some of the sections. You can see the shot on the right there. That's Cheche Zong, which is out of Low. We take a day walk up there. We ride Tibetan ponies. On this trip, it is a pony trek. So every client has their own Tibetan pony for the entire duration of the trip. There's one pony man for every two clients, so you're very well supervised and looked after. The horses are incredibly well behaved, and we take it nice and easy on the horses. It's really fun. It's fantastic. And when we're coming back, you're going to be treated to an exhilarating mountain flight. This is Jomsom Airstrip, and in the back there is a beautiful mountain of Nilgiri. Small planes, as you can see. So it's pretty exciting flying into Jomsom, and you can only do that in the mornings. And from there we head off. This shot's by Samday Sherpa, who's been my leader for many years. He's an avid photographer. Thank you, Samday. You can see here, these are the horses. They're all decked out with Tibetan carpets in traditional style, as they've been ridden like that for hundreds of years. question I'm often asked, do you need to ride a horse? The answer is no, you don't. I can't really ride a horse, but I can manage very well on this trip. You just need to be confident getting on and off a horse and just sit there and enjoy yourself. It's really fun. We just mosey along. The horses have a pecking order and there are bells on the horses. It's quite a magical experience just tracking up that incredible landscape in the way that the locals have done for hundreds of years. We're crossing the Kaligandaki here. I'm on the lead horse there just to make sure all's well, and the clients in the background there will follow me across. So here's a little mud map of where we're going to go. This is a book I've written on Chosa, and we'll talk a bit more about that later. But you can see on the left there, the blue line going through that mud map is the Kaligandaki River. The sort of khaki coloured line is where we'll head up. So after we get our inner line permits in Kagbeni, we're going to head up in the cars to Samar, a village called Samar. Lovely little village. We're very well acquainted with the family there where we'll stop for chai. We're going to see a beautiful puja room there. And then we head up to Gemi where we spend our first night. We're going to be treated to some special things in Gemi too, and we stay in a lovely local lodge there. The cliffs on the right are just outside Gemi, and there you're going to see the longest Mani wall in Upper Mustang. And there's incredible myth and mystery associated with that Mani, and I'll tell you a lot more about that on the trip. So what's my connection with Upper Mustang? I've told you about how I first went to go up there, and so well, I came home and I thought, I really want to go back. And so how can I do that? And I was actually doing a boring job of mopping the floor. And I thought, gee, Tenzing Chogyal, who's an Aussie Tibetan musician, would love to go back there because I knew his parents had escaped from the Chinese occupation through Mustang and had made their way down to India. So I rang Tenzing up and I said, Tenzing La, how do you feel about going back to Upper Mustang and seeing if we can find anyone who remembers your parents and seeing how close we can get to the border and tracing that journey back. And he was so excited about the idea. So I thought, fantastic. The next call was to my friend Marianne Leach, who was the executive producer, foreign correspondent. And I said, I've got this great idea for a story, Marianne. What do you think? Busy time of year for them. She said, well, keep me posted and we'll see what we can do. The end story was that we did go up there. We did go with Tenzing. He performed a concert in the incredible medieval city of Lomantang. Eric Campbell was the journalist who came with us, and they filmed a story which you can still watch online called The Road. So if you Google at some point foreign correspondent The Road, you can watch that half-hour story. And this shot is Eric up on the pass above Lomantang interviewing Tenzing. This is Indra Bistra with Tenzing, and that's on the pass looking back down to Low. You can see in the distance there the green little verdant part down near the river there. With the red building denotes a monastic building, and again in the background there is the Tibetan border. I work with Mr. Sewang Bista. Sewang is a most fantastic person to work with. He is the nephew of the last king of Mustang, and we work very closely together. Sewang opens doors for us that very few tourists or visitors have opened for them. He's connected, grew up in Sarang, joins us for 3 days as our cultural attaché. He's a lot of fun. He's so informative, born and bred, Loba, and as I said, opens doors for us that very few people get opened. This was in May last year. This was at the opening of a new monastic school for girls in Sarang. And I ran into Punsuk, who is a monk in Lomantang. On the right there, you can see his iPod in his funny. You think of traditional life and so on up there, but there he is. It was really good to see him there, and that was a certificate of appreciation they'd given me because I'd fundraised for the girls there at the school for the last 10 years. So they're my main connections up there, and they do make a big difference. So most groups that go up there go up, come back, have a look and come back, but we do offer a lot more than that on this trip. So here we have the ancient walled city of Lomantang, considered to be one of the best preserved medieval cities in the world. It's a 15th century walled city. You can see that red wall there. That is, we're looking from the other side of that pass we were on previously. Now back at Lo, we were on our way to Chosa when I took this shot. And the red walls donate the monastery. It's a 17-day trip. It's graded a 3 by World Expedition standards or introductory. Having said that, there's no such thing as an easy trip or trek in the Himalaya, and I think that's worth bearing in mind. But this trip is still very remote. So you're getting right off the beaten track, right away from things. You can stand in places in Upper Mustang on the way. If you stand still, there's not a movement, not a bird, not a noise, not a sound. You're in this incredibly remote, still, quiet, unbelievable part of the world. So, we're going for the Yartung Festival, the horse festival. That is the highlight. We'll also be doing day treks out of other places and driving in jeeps. As I mentioned before, every client's going to be riding their Tibetan pony. Another highlight is visiting the nomads and one of the last nomad families there. As well, we're going out of Chosa, we're going up toward the Tibetan borderlands to villages like Ndo and Kim and so on. And those villages, they're very unusual because they're really settlements villages. And in some of them, they still speak Tibetan. Most other places, they're speaking Logha or speaking Nepali, but those villages, they still speak Tibetan. So what to expect on the trip? First thing I can tell you is well, I'll just go back to that slide. This is the king on his horse at the start of the Yartung festival, and behind him is the queen. You can see all the locals are out there in their finery, in their traditional dress. The altitude on the trip, we don't sleep higher than 3,800 meters, so that's something you want to be aware of. We will walk 4,200. At one point, if you want to, you can go as high as 4,500 meters. There's good views, obviously, if you make the effort a bit higher. You don't need to take Dimox. We acclimatise very well on the way. I've never had to take Dimox up there and never had a problem. So I think you'd be fine with altitude. And as I say, it's where you sleep that matters. It's not that high. So we're delving into a very rich cultural history. You can see the women here from Chosa are in their cultural dress, and you'll be spending quite a bit of time with these women when we visit. I couldn't resist putting this shot in. This guy was a very cool Loba in Lomantang last year. His goggles were dated aside 1942. He's being asked by many, many people if they could buy those goggles, and he just refuses to sell them. He wears them around all the time. The story is that they probably belonged to some Americans that were there with the CIA. Some people might be aware there was a collaboration between the Kampa people from Tibet, and Kam means from Kam, and Pa means people. They supported the CIA in fighting the Chinese in the 60s until Nixon was closing up more with the Chinese, and that relationship with the Kampa was dropped quite unceremoniously. So you find all these interesting little things when you're up there, see all these interesting people and stories. We'll be passing through the most dramatic landscapes. You can see here, this is one of our ponymen who's Prem. He's an absolute character. He's worked for the royal family up there for decades and decades. He's a great guy. In the background, the fluted cliffs there, and just this vast, barren, eroded, stunning landscape. This is the wonderful Luigi Fiene. Luigi headed up the restoration for the American Himalayan Foundation for 20 years up in Lomantang. That's the walls of Tuchen Gompa behind him. This is in the Gompa. This place is unbelievable. I've seen a lot of monasteries and a lot of Gompas in my time, but nothing like Tuchen Gompa in Lomantang. It's actually a vast Tibetan assembly hall. was completely in ruin until 20 years ago. The American Himalayan Foundation, at the request of the king, funded the restoration. They've spent probably many millions of dollars on restoring this incredible place. So these are local lobas. Luigi trained these people. They were farmers, local people doing other sort of everyday subsistence farming jobs. And he trained them up to paint the walls of the Gompo. And they were like, they're using mineral paints ground up from the minerals like lapis lazuli and so on, and applying these paints with paintbrushes that have 3 or 4 hairs in them. The work is extraordinary. He was Dawa Furlong. He's a Loba, and he was Luigi's right-hand man. You probably meet Dawa if he's in town. Up there, we know him very well. He's tracing a pattern onto the wall. On the right there, you can see the bits that are missing from the original. And on the left, they've made pinpricks in tracing paper that they've drawn the wall paintings onto. And what they do is pat that wall with like a sponge and like ground up almost like sandstone or red ochre. So that goes through the pinpricks in the paper, and they've got the pattern, the outline of the painting on the wall, and then they start painting. It's extraordinary. Another example of a beautiful monastery here. This is Sarang Monastery, again, 15th century. We spend quite a bit of time here in Sarang, a couple of nights. This is my group years ago. So I'm sitting up there with the head monk, me next to him, and then a couple of my terrific clients. And you can see there ancient wall paintings of quite magnificent scale, just fabulous. And the thing about Mustang is they've been able to keep a hold of their Tibetan Buddhist, the integrity in the monasteries. These benches are obviously new, but most of the furniture is original. All the artifacts are original. The Tibetan books are still there. The paraphernalia that's used in all the ceremonies is original. So that is really, really quite a treat. On any trip, you want to know about accommodation. So we have a range of accommodation. This is the lodge we'll be spending a night at in Chosa. It's fairly new, actually, but done out in traditional Tibetan style, as you can see. And around the walls are painted the 8 auspicious symbols of Buddhism. Very cozy, very comfy, and really, I think, incredibly beautiful. Traditional style lodges is where we stay. We're not camping on this trip. They range from the simple to the sublime. In the bottom corner there is my husband, Gary Weir, and that is Norbu, who's one of the head pony man who's been working with us for many years. And that's the lodge called Mystique that we're staying with in Lomantang. The main photo is Mayor's Heritage Inn in Sarang, newly opened about a year ago and just magnificent. Siwang and his sister Mayor built this lodge. I used to actually camp in the garden where this lodge now is built, but it's been done with a French woman who's married to a Nepali, lives in Nepal, and it is magnificent. They've kept all the traditional nods to tradition, but it's very comfortable, beautifully fitted out and just stunning. And I know everybody will just love staying there. While we're up there, we're visiting cave monasteries, and you look at these caves and you think, how on earth did they ever get into those caves? The answer is, of course, hundreds of years of erosion, and the the ground levels dropped away. But they built ladders up, stairways up. There's a school partly operating in those cliff walls there. There's a little gompa, and last year they started building a museum up the top. So further out of this photo than you could see, but there were ladders in place and we did go up into it. So by the time we go in 2025, I would say that will be fully operational. These monks attend a monastic school there in Chosa. So this is a very simple looking house in Chosa. And guess who stayed in that white house there? The upper room in the middle there was refuge for the Karmapa, sort of second in line to the Dalai Lama when he escaped from Tibet. And I think that was about 1999. I was lucky to be up in Dharamsala when he made his first public appearance with the Dalai Lama after fleeing Chinese-occupied Tibet. So, Mustang reveals its secrets very, very slowly. I've been visiting this village for years before I found that out. You know, what the tea house in summer we really had gone to for years before they said, would you like to see our private puja room? So Mustang is a very magical, mystical place, and it does reveal its secrets slowly. And we feel very fortunate to have such great connections up there that we can take you into these places and share these really special things with you. Here's some of the young girls you meet. These young girls, they're quite big now. This was taken a few years ago. Attend the Lekshe Choling Nunnery School in Sarang. We support these girls with their education. They're engaged, lively, intelligent, fantastic young women. Absolutely a pleasure to spend time with. They perform a special puja for my group when we're there. We'll be able to talk to them and interact with them, see where they study, how they live, how they feel about their life, and what their aspirations are as well. This year, with the fundraising I've been doing, we're supporting 2 of the nuns who have gone on to tertiary education in India. In Low, not a lot of things have changed. Everything pretty well was made by hand. These ladies are actually from a different village, but they are in traditional dress, which you'll see a lot of up there. So the striped apron in the front there is called a pangan. And the one around the back, which is all secured by that hip belt you can see, all hand woven, locally made, hand spun wool, hand dyed wool. That little pangan there that's fairly threadbare now, the woman on the left made that 50 years ago, you know, probably when she got married, because married women wear these. It's just incredible how ingenious they are and how clever they are and how much you sort of talk about slow fashion. This is slow fashion at its best. Distance, people often ask about how many kilometres are we walking, how far are we going every day. We measure the distance by hours on horse up in Mustang, you know, not by kilometres, just impossible to do that. So here is Lama Lakpa Garung. He heads up the little school up in Chosang. You'll meet him. I was on a horse opposite him when I took that shot. I couldn't believe it turned out in focus, but that's how people get around. So now we have Yartung Horse Festival. Upper Mustang is most definitely horse territory. This is another one of Luigi's wonderful photographs taken at Yartung a few years ago. I'm going to read this to you now. This is from the small book that I produced in COVID, as a fundraiser for Mustang. I couldn't go there. I wasn't taking groups. No one was going anywhere. So I thought, well, I'll do something useful and make a book about it. So a book about Horse Festival. So if you look at the person on the right with the red flag, that is the Amshi, or Tibetan medicine man. And he leads the parade, leading a riderless horse. The riderless horse is for the deities, and the deities can access that horse if they wish. And there's Raju Bista, member of the royal family, and there is the king there being led on his horse with the red satin gown on, followed by the queen and then members of the royal family and the local Lobas from Lomantang. So I'm just going to read this to you now, the revival of Yartung Festival in Upper Mustang. The Yartung Horse Festival has been celebrated for centuries in Mustang, with equal participation from lay and monastic communities. At the end of trade with Tibet and subsequent economic downfall in the region, many festivals like Yartung were discontinued. Also, due to over-exuberant behaviour at times, many locals didn't support the festival. I suspect there was just a little bit too much Chang drinking going on there. The late King Jigme Paba Bista realised the importance of culture, and he advocated for the revival of local festivals. So that is why the festival has been reinvigorated. That was written by Sewang. You might all be aware of Tiji Festival, which is very well attended, almost a bit too well attended. Yartung attracts a far smaller crowd. Not many people go up there for Yartung. It makes it a much more pleasurable experience, in my opinion. So look, I think it's a pretty special thing to visit. And festivals bring out the best of everybody, and it's an auspicious occasion. So, you know, you're seeing the finery, you're seeing the locals very excited about being at Yartung, and you're really going to love it, I'm sure. So it's a 3-day festival. The first day is for the men, basically. The royal family, there is the queen on her horse. They follow, they lead the procession to the start of the festival. There's the Amchi, followed by the royal family, and he's leading that riderless horse in. So they're kicking off the festival there. This is usual. This is, I just saw such a great shot of him on the horse, again, taken Sam Day, who was one of our crew, and you can see the horse kitted out there. These guys ride fast and furiously at sort of death-defying speeds and pick up carters from the ground. And that's a race and a competition. So you can see here, this is at Yartung. You can see there aren't many tourists there. You can see very few tourists there. In fact, they're all the locals enjoying the festival and egging the riders on. And the rider has to really hang right off that horse. Telling me internet was a bit there, so I hope I'm not buffering too much for you. So at Yartung, you're going to see a lot of singing, dancing. There's the Dranyan instrument there being played. You hear a lot of traditional songs being sung. It's joyful, and a lot of fun is had at the festival. So day 2 is for ladies and girls, women. Here are the local women from Chosa, I recognise from their faces, of course, in their traditional dress. These dress sets are very special. I'll talk a bit about that later, but they're riding into Yartung in their finery. All the little girls, all the locals dress up in their beautiful traditional clothes, and they're all very excited to be there. And even the smallest Loba appreciate riding horses, with or without the horse. That little boy, such a cute shot. And again, Luigi, thank you for that. Such a great photograph. This is me on my horse, taken by one of my clients, Sandra, a few years ago. So while Yartung Festival is the highlight of this trip, it's certainly not the be-all and end-all. There's a lot more on offer on this journey. Here is my group who have climbed to the top of Chepche Zong I mentioned to you before. That's the sort of ruins of a fort up behind Lomantang, built in 1380 by Ame Pal, the first king of Mustang. So we walked up there. It's far too steep to ride a horse up, or definitely can't take a vehicle up. So we walk slowly up there, very manageable. You just take your time. And from there, you can see Tibet, and you can see the pass over to Tibet. You can see where Tibetans escaped when they needed to get out. And I'm sure you all know that sad history, over through to Mustang. What the group is doing there is throwing little prayer flags up into the slipstream. It's the same prayers that are on the prayer flags. These are little prayers printed on paper, and they're caught in the slipstream, and they go all the way to Tibet. It's really fun. Clients just love doing that. So as you can see, we're taking a deep dive into Tibetan Buddhist pop culture. This is taken last year. One of the little boys in that was in Sarang. He's chanting in the monastery there. And here's a photo of me with the mothers in Chosa. You can see this traditional dress is quite spectacular. I've often wondered why this little village has such a very unique and rather elaborate, fabulous dress set. And there's been some sort of speculation whether it wasn't much wealthier in times gone past. Very hard to know. But anyway, you can see how magnificent it is, and they wear those dress sets with great pride. Can you see a young lady in the background? She's to the left of my head. She doesn't have a headdress on, that headdress called a choulet. So she's not wearing turquoise on her head. She's got a bit of pink on her shirt. I want to show you a shot of her now, just in a minute. These are those ladies again on another visit, a bit of a close-up. So you can see that their wealth is worn on their head in the turquoise. Their pangan, the striped apron, worn by married women. These women are actually sitting listening to Tenzin Chogyal play there. That was taken back a few years ago now, but it gives you a bit of a close-up idea of what they're wearing. And here is that young lady in the back of that other photo. With the money we raised over last year, we had a choulet made for her. The choulet had been sold by somebody, and she was really embarrassed and was actually in tears because she didn't have a choulet on to wear at these special events, and she felt embarrassed and left out. So one of my clients just said, I will pay for it. So we then found out there were about 4 or 5 women that choulets had gone missing for various reasons. And we were able to make these. Someone helped get this made in traditional ways so it looked totally authentic, and give these back to the local women. They were just absolutely delighted. We've now worked on, you can see this choulet doesn't have all the little beads on the side like the one on the right. And we've worked on replacing the silver decorations. And so she can look just like everyone else. So you're going to be riding through very dramatic landscapes, reminiscent of rural Tibet about 1,000 years ago. You can see here, this is the road up to, that's between actually, I think, Sarang and Lo by the look of it. That's a Chorten on the way. They were way markers. You'll see them all over the Buddhist Himalaya. Quite spectacular. Usually they contained relics and remnants of deities, monks, auspicious people, maybe even ashes. A lot of them sadly have been ransacked, but they're quite a beautiful sight to see on the way. And you're on your horse, so you can relax. You're not worried about tripping over. You can relax and enjoy the view. There's some other Chortens, just stunning. And as you can see, fit so well into the landscape because they're made out of the same stone and rock, and they're painted with ground up pigments. They're just fabulous. And there you see the beautiful cliffs. So nomad life, that's another aspect of this trip. We're going to be visiting the nomads. This is the matriarch of the nomad family, one of the last nomad families up in Upper Mustang. They have goats. The family nearby have yaks, and you'll see both. If we're lucky, the yaks, they're often higher up the mountain. So this lady, you can see wearing again the traditional dress. She's milking the goats. There they are. They have about 90 goats to milk morning and night. It's quite a job. In the background of their white tents, you can see that's where they live in the warmer months. The goats are all lined up here, and I'm just going to run a little video now so you can see what's going on.
This is one of the last moments. About 2 hours horse ride from Yartung. They've got about 90 goats on this one piece of string they've got to milk, and this happens twice a day. It's a tough flight.
So that was fascinating. I don't know how they do it, to be honest with you. They put the goats in, well, there are 2 sides you can see, but head first, bum first, head first, bum first, more or less. And then they link this string between all their horns, and the goats just stand there waiting very, very patiently. Now I'm going to show you how they let go of the goats. So another little video. This was quite incredible.
Here's the incredibly efficient method of letting go of the goat. It's one string, and they head off to pasture. Incredible. So easy, so simple, and so efficient. Here they go, up the hill.
So that is stunning up there. We stay up there when we visit them that day. We ride our horses out there. It's about a 2-hour horse ride out to the nomads. We spend the day with them. We sit with them in their tent. We share some yak cheese, and you can talk to them. You can see them often making, the mother will be making curd. So she has a sheep's stomach and puts the milk in and then just rocks it back and forth until it turns into yogurt. It's wonderful to watch. Anyway, we stay up till sunset. We actually drive back because we're driving back. By then it's cold and it's dark. We're just safer in the cars and on the horses at that time. But to be out there at sunset, photographically, it's just stunning. So anyone interested in photography, I just don't think it's possible to take a bad photo in Upper Mustang. I want to quote now from the Dalai Lama, who said, authentic Tibetan culture survives only in exile in a few places like Mustang, which has had long historical and cultural ties with Tibet. So Upper Mustang was once part of Western Tibet, and it has a long history shrouded in Bon tradition, legends, and mystery. And I'm sure most of you know, but Bon was sort of animistic Buddhist practice which predated Buddhism. So it worshipped nature and so on. And you do see some strange things up there, like animal heads hanging under bridges and effigies over doorways. And that is to warn off, it's to do with Bon, their Bon traditions, to warn off evil spirits. So this is my little book, Chosar. So Chosar is spelled that way, and also Chosar. Another Luigi shop there. I made this as a fundraiser during COVID. And to quote Tony Wheeler, a Lonely Planet founder, I'm sure you've all heard of Tony, I sent him a copy of the book because he will actually be up there when we're up there with Richard A. Anson, who's a Lonely Planet photographer, and most of you probably heard of too. They'll be up there. I've been working with them to devise an itinerary for them. And they're going to the Horse Festival as well, and we will cross over for a day with them. So Tony said, if I needed my appetite whetted for Upper Mustang, it would have done a very good job. I really appreciated that comment. And everyone booking on the trip does get given a PDF copy of the book. One of the most special moments for me was sharing my fundraiser book with the locals. That was just extraordinary. They just could not believe seeing themselves in a book and seeing themselves photographed even, you know. It was so lovely, so exciting. It was one of the great moments of my life, really. You can see here a bit more detail on those incredible headdress. So for anybody wanting to read up a bit more, I would highly recommend these two books to you. You'll probably only get them online unless you happen to be in Kathmandu. The first one, great bit of background, is he was a Frenchman, anthropologist, went into Upper Mustang in the 60s, invitation from the king. And that is Mustang, a lost Tibetan kingdom. It's fascinating. And if you read it, you go up there, when you're there, you'll really understand a lot more what's going on in terms of traditions and culture. The book on the right is the most magnificent book featuring Luigi's photographs with Kenneth Parker. It's just come out last year. I was lucky to buy the first copy that went into Vajra Bookshop when we visited, and I can't recommend it more highly. You'll be able to pick it up in Kathmandu, and you can buy it from Amazon. Highly recommended, both of those. Nothing on these trips happens without the locals and support from World Expeditions, the office in Sydney, the office in Kathmandu, who gets all our ducks in a row for us, and of course the local leaders and the local people we work with. On the left there is Samday Sherpa, who's contributed some photographs to this presentation. Excuse me, Samday won't be with us next year. We'll be going with another absolute top-notch World Expeditions guide, Haka Rai, who's been to Upper Mustang before and knows the drill up there. The pony men, Norbu and his father on the left, worked the royal family for generations, and Sewang on the right there. There's a horse in the middle, and that's one of our pony men on the bottom there. He's the most wonderful, calm, quiet, super duper pony man you could ever wish for. So that is the end of the presentation. Any questions I'm really happy to answer. It's quite an extraordinary place. I'm going to finish with just reading you a little quote from Stan Armington. And just bear with me here. Mustang is a unique corner of Nepal, a genuine Shangri-La. Culturally and geographically a part of Tibet, Mustang has until relatively recently been closed to the world. Tourism is still strictly limited. There, we're back on. I hope that's worked. Tourism is still strictly limited. This is an amazing opportunity to visit and experience a medieval Buddhist world set among some of the world's most dramatic mountains, the world's deepest valley, and a breathtakingly beautiful high-altitude desert. I can't reiterate that more strongly. It is just a fabulous destination. I have to say, the trip for next year is already filling up. So anybody really keen and interested in booking really needs to get online and book. There are 7 bookings. There's just not that many places left. Can you see me okay, Brad?
Yes, that's me doing some magic behind the screens. That was fantastic, Margie. The question.
I just wanted to say just a couple more things before we go into questions. There has 2 places have come up for this year's trip. It leaves this August, so you'd have to be a bit spontaneous. Someone had a family tragedy and has had to cancel. So that could be one person if you wanted your own room, or a couple or 2 friends. That's this August, and that's online on the World Expeditions website. We won't be going to Yartung this August. I mean, it's not far away now, but there is the opportunity there if you'd like to come. We'll still have all the other experiences, and it is an extraordinary trip. Yartung, I think it's more than half full now, so you quickly. And I just want to mention briefly, sorry, mental blank, I'm having a Jack Biden moment. I was going to mention another trip that I am taking. It's on the World X website called July Ladakh. That's this January, but just check those things out on the World X website. And if you've got any questions at all, you can get in touch with World X or myself, in fact, and we can help you out there. Thanks, Brad.
No, that's awesome, Margie. I think if they go to the search bar and just type in the word Margie, all your trips will come up. But a few people, are there any fitness prerequisites for your trip, Margie?
Look, like anything in the Himalaya, the fitter you are, the better you'll enjoy it. You're going to be at altitude quite a lot of the time, obviously, as I've said, around the 3,800, 4,200 meter. So you will feel the altitude, but we acclimatise well. You need to be able to get on and off a horse. The horsemen are great and they give you a bit of a boost up if you need it. So the fitter you are, the better you are. Having said that, it is no longer a trek. It was a trek up until a year ago, and we've changed it. So, you know, it's not like going on a trip with Tim or Soren or Guy or some of those, you know, top draw World X leaders. It's not a hard trek. So it is, I think the fitter you are, the healthier you are, the better you'll enjoy it. But you need to have good health. Health facilities up there are few and far between. I wouldn't want to take somebody with chronic lung disease or, you know, unstable blood pressure or something like that. If you're in reasonably good health, I think it's something that most people could manage.